You can support the creation of these videos by supporting me at patreon.com/John D. Ruddy. Hi folks, my name is John D. Ruddy. You might know me from my series Many Man Does History, but I have also been a massive Pokemon fan. I was there, man, when it all started. Following the hype, collecting all the merch, and getting Pokemon Blue for Christmas, and indeed, catching them all. I'm here to help you build your own Pokedex. What do I mean by that? We are going to draw every single Pokemon. Yes, there's over 1,000 of them now. We're going to do it. Not only will you learn to draw Pokemon, but you'll also learn loads of great skills for drawing cartoons and drawing people that you can bring into your own illustrations. You can start your collection with a ring binder and some Polly Pockets, or if you just want to draw, you'll need simple printer paper, a pencil, I prefer a HB or a 2H because we're going to be rubbing these lines out later, an eraser and some sort of pen or fine tip liner, and indeed some colourful markers for the end product. Come along and join as we try to draw them all. Okay, so starting off, I'm going to do the simple version, just so we can have a simple draw if we don't feel like drawing for too long. So for Bulbasaur, we'll start off with a little head shape like this. And little triangle ears like that. And his eyes little triangles inside, and his little mouth, so he's got a little smile. It comes down to a point, and like that, and a little nose, and teeth, tongue, and you can add a couple little spots. And his, let's see, front leg, 1, 2, 3, and other front leg, 1, 2, 3. His back leg, his other back leg. There's little Bulbasaur, but of course we're missing the most important thing, the bulb. So it's basically like an upside down heart, except so goes out like this and up, and from the other side out like this and up, just like that. And then along the top, a couple of little lines. But then inside, I get another little shape like that, and that's the simple version of Bulbasaur. And now the simple version, quick and simple version of Ivysaur. Similar head. And give him his wee ears, except this time they've got the little triangles in them. And similar little fangs, and again little triangles. You can bring those lines out a little bit if you want, and you can give him some spots there as well. And then his front legs, so similar front legs, except Ivysaur's kind of standing up a little bit more. He kind of raises himself up off the ground a little bit more, which is good for him because once he becomes Venusaur, he's back to staying down low. And there we go. And there's other wee legs in behind there. And give him some spots, give him some spots, give him some spots. Spots, spots, spots. And for the leaf, that's one leaf. And watch this. Basically, we're like drum boxes out from it. The same on the other side. Box, 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 box. And the blossom, what do you see? So I'll do a couple of wee spikes along here because we've got the little back of the blossom there. And like that. And just to show a little bit of the petal ready to come up. And there we go. That's the simple version of Ivysaur. And now for Venusaur, the simple version of Venusaur is as follows. Well, simple, quick version of Venusaur is here. So again, we'll start with the head, except this time the thing with Venusaur is Venusaur has a big leaf coming down the front of his head. But we'll draw. Start with his mouth actually here, and then we can draw his big mouth coming out like that. Give him his wee nostrils, so then we know where the bottom of his head will be. And then one eye. So mean. And so, and then a little triangle in his ear. It's the leaf down the top of his head, so it's similar to Ivysaur, where it's like we're drawing little boxes coming out of the leaf. And down like that. So, coming out of his back, there's another leaf, and again, same idea. There we go. And then there's a flower coming out of his back too. So we can do a big, tell you what, we can start with the top of the flower up here. And then there's one petal coming down, like that. Then there's another petal coming down. But look, some of it's kind of hidden behind that leaf. Now, it's hidden behind my one, but if you might have drawn your flower a little bit higher, that's okay. There's little petals coming out. And here's the stem of the flower. It's got some zigzag lines along there. And now, so for his front leg, see, there's a couple little more angles in his front leg. There's a couple little folds and a couple little lines. And indeed, your little letter C's works for the little warts. And so, and his back leg comes back like this. Like that. Okay, so, and then, oh yeah, his other little legs in behind there. So, you can add some spots to the flower as well. Now, I'm not going to color these ones in because these ones are the quick ones. Because as you can see, this video is a little bit longer than 7 or 8 minutes. So we're going to draw these again, but in super detail. And now for the one that takes a little bit more time and effort. Okay, so hi folks, here we are. So to start off, we've got our paper here, and we're going to have it portrait, not landscape. So we're not having it landscape, we're having it portrait. I know you can't see that full page, but that's okay. I trust you know where it is. And we're going to start. So first of all, we start with our pencil rather than diving straight into our line marker because I have something to show you. Because this I made when I was like 11 or 12. And this I have drawn every single Pokemon up until that point. See the way Pikachu has like a massive head? And see the way... Oh, Vulpix is pretty good, and that Clefable's pretty good. I mean, in fairness, and like, these are, you know, they are decent. But, you know, the Alakazam, it could be a bit grander. Some of them are great, some of them are not so great. None of them are woeful, but this, again, folks, this is because I had years and years. Look at that Ditto. That Ditto's perfect. And Taurus is a bit... Yeah. So, anyway, all of that to say, I just drew all of these with pen, copying them out of a book without any pencil. And that's fine. You know, you can even see here in the characters that... Yeah, look a wee bit, you know, the proportions aren't perfect or anything. But yeah, this is the one we're going to start with, Bulbasaur. And that's not exactly the picture of Bulbasaur we're going to go for, but that just gives you an idea. And the funny thing is, now that I look at it, my block capitals have not changed all that much since then. They've maybe kind of tidied up a little bit, but that's kind of funny. Okay, so we're gonna start. We're gonna start off with most characters. I like to start off with a head, and so Bulbasaur's head is kind of like a pentagon shape, really. You know, it's just like that. And some would say an upside down pentagon, but it's like, well, it all depends on what way you're looking. And then the rest of his body. Now, here's another thing. So we're going soft on these lines because obviously we're not going to see this line here, but we draw that line just so we have an idea of where the rest of his body is, rather than just drawing a bit. And then for his arms, now Bulbasaur's arms are very easy because they're just little plimps. But plimps, that's a real word. Yeah, and again as well, you know, we can, so like I drew that initial one, but I was like, no, that's not wide enough. Make it wider, because Bulbasaur's a nice wee cute size. And again, his back leg's going to be behind here. Again, we're only going to see this tiny little corner, but we draw some of those lines just so we get a better idea. The back legs are a little bit different from the front legs. They kind of curve around. See this, the line on his back kind of curls around as well, like that. I'm going to do some of his wee nails. So his nails are actually just little squares or diamonds, or, well, it depends on what angle you're looking at. If you're looking at it straight on, they're kind of more diamonds with a slightly rounded top, whereas the ones over here are more triangles. And this all depends on what angle you're looking at them. These toes go there, like that. So, just, you know, John, why aren't we doing the exciting, cool head, face, you know that thing that's on the face? Well, we're going to do the bulb first, you know, because this is Bulbasaur. And so, we can do that, again, get that nice kind of roundy shape there. But then off the back of that, sorry Pokemon Gold, I'm going to have to move you because my hand is here. Put you on top, no, put you on top of the Game Boy. There we go. I need this space apparently. This is my space. My space. There's a dated reference that none of you will get. So we can draw a little line that kind of goes halfway up this bulb. And we can do a curvy line up one side and a curvy line up the other. And that basically gets you your basic bulb. Now, inside that basic bulb, there's another bulb. So watch this. We're going to draw this line here. And so it's going to come in, but it's going to follow this line. It's going to be parallel to that line. Well, not exactly parallel, but, you know, it kind of follows it like that. And again, you're kind of like, why are we drawing the entire thing? Well, that's fine. If it's bothering you that much, I can show you a little bit that we can rub out now. Just so here I've got my nice wee rubber or eraser, depending on what part of the world you're on. So you can rub out some of these wee lines now. Of course, when I rub, of course when I use the eraser, it makes a nice earthquake for the table, but that's fine. Now, there we go. You happy we've drawn the bulb? And now we're going to draw the face. So we're going to start off with his little ear. A little triangle. So he's kind of like a frog. But not exactly. That's what I love about really good Pokemon design, is the ones that you're like, okay, I can see what that's based on, but it's not like just, oh, that's a pigeon. You know, it's like, oh no, there's a tweak to it. And indeed, the tweak here being he's got a bulb growing on his back. So his eyes. Now, actually, do you know what? I'll draw the mouth first because that's easier to place. So his mouth kind of starts. We draw just a wee dot here and a wee dot here, okay? And so that curves down like that. So it kind of points down in the middle, and it kind of, you know, follows his. Actually, do you know what? I can even round off the bottom of his head now. You know, again, these shapes give us guides, but you know, the shapes aren't always the final piece. See, look, even I'm giving the side of the face a wee bit more shape now too. So it's actually got an extra little kink in it. So his mouth. You can then kind of do a bit of it's not an actual semicircle, but you know, nice curvy line around like that, which gives Bulbasaur his lovely little smile, and give him we can add that little dimple a little bit more, and he's got 2 teeth, because indeed that's why they're called Pokemon. They're pocket monsters, and that little line there is his tongue. And so this is the reason why we drew the mouth first, is because it's a lot easier to do the mouth and then draw the eyes. So the eyes are basically triangles, but with just kind of curvy lines. But you'll see as well, it kind of leans a little bit that way, you know? So it's not perfect. And this one, because this is a 3D shape, you know, like it's not flat. The picture's flat, but it's pretty, you know. So this eye is actually thinner than this one because it's further away on it's on a curved surface essentially. And so then we can draw the pupil. Now he's got a massive pupil. Well, sorry, not a massive pupil, massive iris. Put on the spot. The color bit of your eye. There's his wee eye. Nice little shape. And there we go, like that. And then a couple of little details just to finish him off. Do you know what, as well? I'm looking at this now and realizing that bulb is too small. And this is why the pencil comes in handy, because you can just make it bigger. You know, you can make it bigger. You can decide, actually, I'm going to change this a little bit. So I'm just going to make this line bigger, you know? And that's why we use the pencil for, because, you know, even I make mistakes. And you can make decisions later. But that's why we do the pencil first, so that we can look at it and go, nah, that doesn't look right. I'm going to change that. Whereas if you've already drawn it in pen, it's much more difficult. Much more difficult to get out. So, final little details on our Bulbasaur. We got little line for an eyebrow. We've got his nostrils, and then just a couple of his little markings. So he has some of his lovely little spots like this, and some of his lovely little spots like that. So the spots, I mean, you know, they don't have to be perfect. They're, you know, just kind of shapes. The trick with it mainly rounded edges, and you kind of want to avoid them being like too circular, because you don't want it, you don't want it looking round, because then it looks spotted and then it kind of looks less like Bulbasaur. But yeah, there you go. So that's the line part of it, and now on to the liner. Now this is my kind of fancy pigment liner, 0.8 millimeters. But you know, you can use a black pen. Like literally all of these pictures were done. Also, I'm going to say this to you now, don't draw on lined paper. Just do yourself a favor, get some paper without lines on it. I was at a Star Wars convention years ago and I was showing a guy all of my artwork, and the first thing he said is like, stop drawing on lined paper. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so now we're not going to be tracing over all of these lines, so we can kind of be careful and selective of which lines. And so what's nice about kind of the way we've got our pencil lines down first is we can see exactly where our lines can go. Now here though we have to be a lot more careful, because once this line is down, it's down. So, which is why I'm not talking as much, because I'm concentrating. That's the thing, drawing requires concentration. That's why we do it, because it's relaxing and fun and expressive. And we get to the end of our picture and we're like, oh, that's so cool. Hopefully. In fairness, we're always our own worst critics. We look at a lot of our own pictures and think, oh, it's rubbish. But we're all learning. I'm still learning. Still things I'm quite rubbish at drawing. Rubbish is a very harsh word. But see, he's really coming, taking shape. And then we just trace along here like that. Trace along these. Now, again, the wee nails. So, trick as well is always draw what's out on front first. So these nails are in front of the leg, or at least two of these nails are. So it just means then that you haven't drawn the line of the leg and then go, oh no. I've just broken my own rule because this line technically is behind that. But the nails more so just because they interact more with the leg, if that makes sense. For this line, again, yeah. Alright, so these nails look a little bit different. So they're pointed at the front, but they're slightly roundy at the back. And that's because you're seeing the front of them. Whereas these ones you're seeing to the side, they're pointed off to the side, whereas these ones are pointed out right in front of you. Pointing towards you, so you see them from a different angle. Do you know what? Actually, I'm going to make this mark a little bit lower on his leg, and his hind leg just goes back here. Right, so with these, you know, we'll start with this middle, what's that word? Clove? Yeah, it's like garlic. Like, that's the thing, this is basically, you know, any kind of bulb that you're doing, but it looks like a big clove of garlic, except it's not white, it's green. I'm pretty sure probably cloves of garlic start off green, and as they ripen. And then this one, you only see one side of it, which is why it's only got one little bump along the top. Well, there you go. And if I'm quite honest, that bulb could probably been slightly more bulbous, but how and ever. And underneath it, I'm going to write number 001 Bulbasaur. Taking a real risk doing that because I just realized halfway through, what if I spell it wrong? So, our next bit is tricky, and also I'm just thinking I don't want to have these cartridges facing my eraser, and same with my Game Boy, because all of those little bits and pieces. So, I've got all of the open parts of the cartridges facing away, because I'm going to be erasing these lines. So, a big part of erasing. Be very, very careful. You know, you're like, but we're just rubbing out. But how many times I have drawn a picture and then I'll demonstrate it on the next page. You know, where you're rubbing out, and then you like, oh, look at this. Like, I can't even do it on purpose. But like, you know, you rub it and you crease your paper like that. So be very careful. Give me that juice. I'll recycle that. But yeah. So rub it out very carefully. Don't, you know, because the temptation would be just to. Oh look, I missed that line. There we go. Now I'm not going to rub over that line because then that ink will probably be a little bit wet, just a little bit, so it might smudge. Thankfully, this ink doesn't take too long to dry. So, yeah, so take your time when you're rubbing out. Don't rush it, because it's when you rush it and you do big sweeps like that, that's when you scrunch your paper. So you want to avoid scrunching your paper. And I have done it. And it's the corners, it's when you get to close to the corners of the page is when it's most likely to happen. So be careful. No. Okay. There we go. That looks pretty good. That's our Bulbasaur. And now we're going to color it in. So the colors that I'm going to be using now, these are fancy ones. These are it literally says pro markers, but you can use Crayola. You know, you can use much cheaper markers. These are the ones that I love because, you know, I've been using them for years. But I'm a professional illustrator. These are like €3 or €4 each, so don't go breaking the bank for that if you cannot afford it. Now, there's a couple of different ways. Now, the other thing is when you're coloring with marker, particularly with these ones, because these are heavy, they're permanent markers essentially. Always have at least 2 sheets underneath it, just to make sure that it's not going on the table, because these do seep through the paper. So there's a couple of different ways that you can go about coloring these in. Now, if you want to, you can just be sectional. And you're like, John, what does that mean? So you can color in just these wee bits here along the edge. Now, another way of doing this to get the color really, really even is rather than just selecting just these edge bits to color, I could actually color this entire bulb and cover the rest. You're like, what I mean? So I could color this entire bulb with this marker. This is the lighter marker. But I'm not going to do that. Just to save ink. And I'm also curious to see as to how much that would be worth doing. So then I'm using a darker shade. Now, if you want to as well, you know, you don't have to color as fancy as this. You can just go right ahead and do simpler. Just color the whole thing just green. So this is just showing you a little bit of how to be fancy in your coloring. And this is another handy thing about these markers is the nice big flat tip on them. So this is one of the advantages if I wanted to color. Now this is a wee bit more advanced, but you know. See the way as well, the way that I'm coloring, I'm following the shape of the bulb, you know. I'm trying to avoid horizontal lines. Now here I've done a big horizontal line there, you know, but I'm trying to, but that's partially because of this. So this is the shade. This is also why you'd actually be better off doing coloring the whole thing, the lightest color, and then adding the next shade down, and then adding the next shade down on top. Whereas I'm just doing them all on the white, which is fine for this. It's fine. But yeah, this just helps give more of a sense of shape to it. And when you're using these, I always try and start with the lighter colors, because you know they pop better against the darker colors. But yeah, so you see there, so the light's coming from this side, and so the highlights are on this side and the shadows on this side. Slightly darker than I probably could have done. I could have chosen a slightly better shade. It's fine. It's fine. Now we're going to do his body. So let's see what colors we have. Soft green. We can also, here's another tip. If you're not 100% sure of what these colors look like, test it. That is like the perfect Bulbasaur color. Oh, also, see it leaks. That's the perfect Bulbasaur color. But I need, so that should work for the main color, but I also need one for a darker grey green. Now I also have a system on my markers, so if there's one line of tape, it's slightly running out. So if I do it for more than just a wee bit of this, like see if I keep going, it's starting to run out and you're starting to hear the squeak, so it's a way for me to keep track, because this still has use. I can still use this, but just for small details, because if I want to use it to cover a big space like this, it'll start getting grainy. So I'm going to do the highlights first, and so three highlights. Notice, so on these markers as well, you can use the fine tip, which is great. So these wee lines, I'm just picking out sections on the side. So the highlights will always be, well, providing your picture has one source of light in its imaginary world. Ooh, I went out the lines. It's fine. I will survive. Worse things have happened than people coloring outside the lines. So like that. And then, do you know what? You can actually ignore that line, ignore the spot, because we can just use slightly lighter shade for there, just to get the right shape. Okay, oh, and a little tiny little schmip there. I make all sorts of sounds when I'm colouring in, as you'll discover. Soft green now. And again, for this you can use a turquoise, or but these markers are just a little bit more precise, a little bit more. Okay, so see, I'm actually going over the spots there. But see as well, I'm following the flow of his face. I'm not just going willy-nilly across. I'm trying to have these stroke lines follow the flow of his face. Oh no, that's the highlight line. Oh well. See, even I make mistakes. We'll survive. There we go. See, the highlights were so subtle, I couldn't even see them. But yeah, so I'm trying to follow the flow of the face, because these lines help create the 3D aspect. You know, when you're using markers, and the same when you're using coloring pencils. Like, see the way there, even though there's not a line there, I'm using that to show where the edge of his head is. And the thing with markers as well, now you might notice this happens sometimes. See, it starts off dark, but as it dries, it gets lighter. And so there's a very brief amount of, you'll probably see a line form here because I maybe was a little bit too late. But if you're ever coloring in a big space, these little lines along here, you know, they do form, but it's fine. So yeah, we're always trying to follow the flow of the animal, follow the flow. And this is where drawing more and more animals, you get better at it, you know, because you get better at knowing anatomy, you get better at knowing how animals are built, even though these are, you know, fictional. You know, they're still based on, and they do have what they call physiology, you know, how it's built. Now I'm going to use this darker one now. And I'm actually going to bring it over that one. So, and it'll also help hide the fact that this is a little bit has run out a little bit. That it already has like a base color underneath it. So that should work pretty well. Whereas if this was just on the white, you'd be seeing it running out a lot sooner. But you can hear it. You can hear the squeak. We all know that squeak of doom. But so this is what I was talking about with the bulb, you know, where you could have started, you could have done the whole thing colored in lighter and then just layer on your colors. But if you only have limited ink, then you know, should be a little bit more careful. But yeah, so there's the basic body. See how it's kind of starting to take a 3D form. There's a flow to it, and the spots. He's got spots. Let's see. I think marine should be nice for the spots. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm happy enough with that. Let's see. Oh, lovely. Now here's one, which is, so I'm going to do the bit that's not part of the highlight in the green, but I'm actually going to use soft green, the green that we used for most of his body, but I'm going to use soft green for the highlights. The same over here. So, because the highlights, the darker color is still now brighter. Okay, it's really starting to look like Bulbasaur. Let's go. And now, finally, the eyes. Poppy. I do love Poppy. Poppy is, now again, look, but for this small space, I should get away with. Also going to use just a slightly darker shade along the top. Give a little bit of shade on just the top of his eyes. That'll do. Okay. And so again, you can use this for the whole tongue. but some of it we're going to be recoloring with another. Yeah, do you know what? Maybe slate in here. It's like a kind of a dark purpley grey. Right in the back. There's that. And finally, this is one last week. Oh, the squeak of doom. There we go. It's Bulbasaur. Sweet. I'm going to show you one thing actually that I'm going to do. So I'm going to line up my picture from underneath, and so I can trace my numbers so that I can have them all at the same spot, and you'll see what that means. So here we go. Number 002 Ivysaur. And also, by drawing it there first, I don't run the risk of making a spelling mistake later. Now I'm going to move this away before I start drawing on it. Let's have a look at what I did for... First of all, there's our Bulbasaur. So you can see there, I was kind of following the flow. And I did some of the highlights and the shades. You know, but again, like this just shows you as well. Also, my blue marker was very much running out. But it, you know, it shows you. It takes practice. Yeah, because the blue started off like that, ended up like that. It was very much running out. Let's have a look for Ivysaur. Yeah, for this, I then decided to go with the crayons or coloring pencils. Crayons. Yeah, let's see how we get with Ivysaur. So it's a lot of the same kind of, a lot of the same steps, just he's a bigger boy. So like, you know, the face in a similar way is kind of starts off as a pentagon as well, except this time he's a wee bit more upright. This one kind of sitting up. He's got a kind of bigger body. But likewise, so I'm going to kind of go through this one a little bit quicker because it's a similar build too. But here's a trick actually, just to get him all, making sure that he's all landing on the one. I'm going to draw a line underneath him just to make sure, because the pose that he's in, all of his legs are coming down onto the one spot. So, because see the way already this one's kind of floating up a wee bit. I want to make sure that they're all down at the same spot. So there's his wee legs, and so see, and as well his claws are a wee bit different as well. He's got one that points out front, and then the other two point out either side. So these ones more or less are all triangles, unless you are looking at it straight on. Although the back ones are all triangles just in a row. And look, they're actually hidden behind each other. You see that? So there's that. Okay, so there's auto. Ooh. Again, pencil bit, not worried about mistakes as much. Before we do the face, again, we'll do the plant. So the plant here, it's gotten a bit bigger. It's grown from the bulb. So what we're actually going to do, we're going to draw the stem. So this is the stem. You're like, that's a cylinder, yeah. So do like a little circle, and an oval, and then another oval, and then two lines going up connecting them, and that creates your cylinder. And then our bulb has grown up. It's becoming a blossom. So it's flat along the top on either side. And now the actual bulb itself has become leaves. And so we've got one leaf coming out that way, and one leaf coming out that way, and one would imagine there's a leaf going out there, but we're only drawing it from this angle, so we're not going to see that one. So drawing leaves, here's the trick. So generally, there's two main types of leaves, but the more common one that people tend to draw are the ones that have a middle vein technically they're not called veins, what are they? Xylems and phloems or something like that. But yeah, and so they have lines coming out like this. Now, this is not exactly, and the way that Ivysaur's is a wee bit more stylized. So that's that. And now the bloom is actually in two parts, so that like there's a little line that comes down here. So this is the blossom. And it's got little rough little bits at the top. And a little bit here, because this is the bit that's going to be the flower that's going to burst open and be the top of Venusaur. So for the leaves themselves, we can, so the style of leaf that Ivysaur has, they're kind of big blocky leaves. They're not really, I'm not sure if I've seen any kind of in real life that look exactly like that. So you can see, like, I'm not following exactly those lines that I did. They were just guides so as I can see where to go. But we can make these leaves nice and big and blocky. And you know what? Now that we have the roundness of that cylinder, or the stem, we can actually add a couple of extra lines, because that's part of the thing too. But now that we have that done, we can actually rub part of it out. Because now we're going to do the face. And the face, very, very similar to what we did with Venusaur. Not Venusaur, Bulbasaur. Now, Ivysaur's ears are a little bit more developed than Bulbasaur's. And that's the thing you often see in the kind of evolutionary forms. So it's almost like a cat's ear, you know? That you very much don't see in frogs, so that kind of sets it apart. Now again, I'm going to start with the mouth of Ivysaur, because it's easier to get all the rest of the things in place afterwards. So his mouth, so we're just going to do a vague line there first, but then we can actually kind of curves, and it comes down to a little point in the middle, and then back up, and then it curves back up because he's got a wee bit of a smile. And now this dude's got much white. In this picture, his mouth is wide open. So, Ivysaur. And again, he's got his wee fangs. And now for the eyes, similar thing. Although his face is a little bit kind of more facing us, but they tend to look a little bit meaner. I'm trying to think, are there any evolved forms which actually look cuter than their predecessor? I suppose Butterfree looks a lot cuter than Metapod. That's kind of the point. And he's got these couple of little lines for little eyebrows. They're not actually eyebrows, but they're just little eye lines showing the kind of little bulbous kind of shape around the eye. And then we can add a couple, just the shapes of the spots. Now we can start doing our lines. So that's it all. And now to colour it in. So Ivysaur is a slightly different kind of shade of bluey green compared to Bulbasaur, so I'm not going to use that exact colour. However, I will use the same colors that I used for Bulbasaur's mouth. Do you know what? Actually, I'm going to chance my arm and I'm going to actually make all of it forest green. Yeah, so for anyone who's not sure, I mean, you might have saw at the start of the video, but all of these are all going into our Pokedex, and by Pokedex, it's a binder. it's a ring binder, but it's just a cool way. It's a cool little project to do, and we can all do it together. Because, like, I mean, I don't have it done right now. You know, this is literally the second Pokemon that I've drawn for this, so. But we can all draw it together. We can draw every single one. Now, you see as well, again, as I'm colouring these leaves, you know, you kind of want to go a wee bit with the flow of the leaves. Now, it depends on what kind of markers you are, because some markers can actually finish really well that you don't really see any of the lines afterward. Like, you don't see any of the stroke marks. But even if you do, like the stroke of the marker, but even if you do, it's always good practice to give your colours a bit of flow, because if you do end up seeing those lines, at least they're going in the right direction. You know, they make sense to the picture, and they give your picture energy. You know, you're like, what? What do you mean by that? Well, like, you know, it gives your, rather than just scribbling this on. You know, you're giving it a bit of energy, you're giving it flow, you're making it look like the shape it's supposed to be. So that's all part of the process. That's another trick too. Now, I'm here using all of these fancy markers, but a really good trick that you can do with markers is the second layer. Now, some of you might have already worked that one out. What I mean by that, I'll show you now in a minute. I want to finish this leaf. So, for example, look, we've got Bulbasaur still there. Okay, so say you got that, or even if I do an even thinner layer like that. Okay. So that's now going to dry. That's going to, you know, take, you know, dry in a couple of seconds, but it'll still dry. Whereas then if I go back and if I want to add some shading, I can use the exact same marker and just add a second layer of ink. And that second layer, you know, will darken. Now you can see here as well, like, so I already added a whole pile of ink at the start up here, but see the way it gets lighter. Whereas if I were to add more ink, you can see where it overlaps. It gets much darker. And you can do that with any kind of markers. Now, it mightn't be as neat and fancy as this, but you can do that. And it's a really good way if you don't have access to all of the fancy markers. Is just using the second layer. Here is a trick. So most of these, and actually this is a good example of mixing your colors, is I'm at a bit of a dilemma right now where I'm like, I can't find the color that I want because all of these are too green and not they're too blue and not enough green. However, what I can do is I can do a layer of like this soft green and then do a layer of blue onto it, and I might actually get the color that I want. And I can actually, so I can actually color this whole thing. So this is actually what I was suggesting to do previously with Bulbasaur. So I'm actually going to cover this whole Ivysaur with this particular color. So now we can use, I think I'm gonna go with a cool aqua for this. But what we can do is we can actually leave the spots of the highlights uncolored, and that base layer of color will work as our highlight. Okay, so that's another layer, and I'm gonna add in his little toe. Hello. There we go. There's his toe. And now, I think this denim blue should work. I'll just do a wee test on this page. Oh, perfect. That's exactly the shade that I want. Ah, look at that. It's gorgeous. Yeah, that's gorgeous. I think gray-green, what I used on Bulbasaur, might work here. Close enough. Not perfect, but actually, aha, there we go. I use gray-green along all of them. It just kind of mutes that color a little bit, because this is a little bit strong. And finally, nice midnight blue. Okay, lovely. So, there is our Ivysaur. Boom. And here's a Venusaur with Bulbasaur. I keep saying Venusaur. Yeah, because Ivysaur, Venusaur, you know. But yeah. And now just one more. One more for today. Ew, I have so many of these to do. Not all of Bulbasaur, but again, we'll line up our page. You'll notice I'm tracing Bulbasaur and not Ivysaur, or at least the numbers, because sometimes if we trace only the last one, if you're constantly you're making a copy of a copy of a copy, sometimes it can start like creeping around the page, you know, because you keep changing where it is, whereas here, if you keep going off the first one, Venusaur. That's spelled right? Yes. Okay, and let's get rid of Bulbasaur so I don't draw on him. Okay, so last one for today. Here we go. So Venusaur is pretty cool. Now its head, it's actually going to be facing the other way for a change. And its head, because its mouth is going to be open, it's more of kind of like a hexagon shape. And its body, it's got a big body. So its head gets lower and its body gets bigger. And its arms aren't as simple as they were when it was smaller. So there's a little bit more physiology, a little bit more, you know. So here's its back leg. So what I mean by that, so these are the legs, but on top of on the bottom of the legs, there's also little hands and feet. That's slightly different too. Now, again, in the finished picture, we're not really going to see any of that. But, just to show. So, the flower, similar to the one that we did on Ivysaur, we're going to do the cylinder. So, it's like a... Except this time, rather than straight up, it actually kind of bulges a little bit. Like that. And then at the top of that, that's the top of our flower. But we actually don't see the top of the flower. Well, we see kind of the inside of it from an angle. But from this angle, we're going to draw it. So one of the petals is going to come down like this. Because now the blossom has now bloomed. And it is now a flower. But that flower is flopping down. I'm not going to be doing the mega evolutions just yet. I might actually do that in a later episode where, say, like I take Mega Charizard, Mega Blastoise, Mega Venusaur and do them all together. I think 3 is more than enough for one episode. Arguably, I could probably do less. Okay, so here I'm doing the leaf coming out. So this is the leaf now. So this leaf started off as that little bulb on the top of Bulbasaur. And as it evolved, it has developed. Now, what's kind of cool is that leaf flops. So there's like kind of a 3D effect here. Maybe tricky to see what's going on, but you'll get it. It almost looks like a tongue. Like at the moment, it looks like a tongue. And if you imagine it like that, it can actually help you draw it. So see, that's the tongue licking down like that. We're not drawing lick a tongue yet, but and then so that's the middle of the leaf like that. But now we're gonna have the big tongue coming down like that. See? And it flops down over the forehead of Venusaur. Now, you're like, but he doesn't have a big tongue sticking out. Yeah, exactly. He has little things. So what you can do then is you can break up that with little V cuts into it. And they don't all need to be uniform. Some of the pieces are big, some of the pieces are small. But they're all coming out. So again, we're kind of thinking the 3D shape of it. Oh, and the same can be done actually on the petals. How did I draw it years ago? How did I draw it years ago? That's actually not bad. That's not bad. You know, and so you can kind of see all the wee crinkles and stuff. But again, I would have drawn those. So I drew none of these with line drawings first. So you can see, like, they're a wee bit kind of ish. But that being said, that's actually pretty good for, what age was I? About 11, 12. I think I did another picture of Venusaur here. This was another one. Again, don't draw on lined paper. I mean, it's not illegal, but there you go. Yeah. And also, this is another reason why we start off with pencil drawings, because looking at this entire page, if I had planned this out better, I could have made sure that I had enough space for everyone instead of fitting the big massive Venusaur down here in the bottom. But oh well. We learn from our mistakes. As I said, the worst mistakes are the ones you don't learn from. So Venusaur, we're going to do its ears now. So its ears are pretty cool. Again, they're like cat's ears, you know, so they kind of come up, and then we do a wee triangle on that side. Now on this side, it's actually a much narrower, much smaller triangle because it's pointing away, or it's pointing kind of further over. And just like the first two, we're going to start with the mouth in the same way. So So his mouth comes across like that. So his mouth's a little bit different. It's a little bit more beastly than Ivysaur or Bulbasaur. So it comes up and it still has that dip in the middle, but it's not a cute point in the same way. It's more of a curve. And then just the angle that we're going in will actually get the side of his cheek. And so from that, we can get a little bit more shape to his jaw. I remember when I was growing up and, you know, learning how to draw, and like I'd get loads of art books and they'd always start with these line drawings as well, and I was always like, oh, why bother doing the line drawings, you know, just dive straight in. And it's for those reasons, like, you know, that's how you get it. Because then I get to the end, nowadays I get to the end of a picture and kids be like, how does it look so good? And it's like, because you plan it out first, you know, you don't dive straight into it. Now, you can dive straight into it. I'm not saying, you know, it's not against the law. It's, you know, you can if you want to. But doing your line drawing first can really, really help. It's like, see the way, I'm not just doing one stroke of the nose, you know? I'm doing a couple just to get it exactly where I want it to. And so the eyes of Venusaur, we can start just by getting the general placing of them. Looks terrifying there, these big circles. But he's not going to have big spooky circles like that. And again, see, I'm able to bring it over to where I want it to be. So this eye, so we're going to draw a diagonal line down the middle because he's looking mean. And now the bottom of his eye isn't actually round. It's got a couple of flat sides to it like that. And then the top is the same, except they're just lines, just to show the outline of the eye. Because again, you know, you look at your own eye, or so, you know, somebody else's eye. When they close their eye, you can still see their eyeball underneath, like not literally there, but you know, you can see the shape of their eyeball underneath. And we can give him his little pupil. He has his white pupil, same as Bulbasaur does. Okay, so the legs are a little bit trickier than the other ones, but we can go by, and this is where, so we got these lovely shapes here, and that comes down like that, and we got one toe, and this toe here is on its side. So here we can see, so we're looking at these two toes from the front, so they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, you know, whereas this one we can see from the side, so we only see one of these lines. So the other one's on the far side there, and I can't see it. So on top of that, Ivysaur has a lot more skin. You know, Ivysaur is more like a big toad. And so he's got like all these kind of wrinkles and skin. So like there's all these like little lines and kinks in the skin, and indeed the warts. He's got warts on his skin as well, and you can literally just do them little letter C's. You know, they work. And the back leg. And again, it's just these little rolls, these little lips of skin that just make him look bigger and gnarlier. And again, we're seeing these toes all from the side. And look at this, actually, we're actually going up on 2 toes here because the other one is further around, so we don't even see where that one connects to the foot because it's at a further angle. And again, our warts and all. That's there was a kind of movement in like, kind of the 1600s onwards, where the painters were very honest with their paintings, and the phrase was warts and all, because they drew them. They drew the people warts and all. Okay, so, oh, there's a couple of spots on these petals as well. Yeah, because before that, because essentially, you know, if you had your portrait done, it meant, you know, at that time, it meant that you were important enough and or rich enough to actually be able to afford to hire someone to paint you. And so the painter would say it was someone like Henry VIII. You know, the painter would be sitting there going, well, if I make them, if I'm a bit too honest and I include all of their imperfections, they might get very angry with me and have my head chopped off. So they didn't do that. They didn't do that, thankfully. Well, maybe some of them did. Oh yeah, and then just a couple of wee lines on the stem. Yeah, so eventually though there were some artists who started painting warts and all, was the phrase. Oliver Cromwell famously was painted warts and all. He had a big wart on his forehead. Okay, so we're gonna start. What will we start? Yeah, we'll start in this big petal here. Hello petal, how are you? Right. There's a little bit of an overlap. The way that these petals are done, like they're not very perfect. You know, even in the original artwork, they're not perfect. And of course, like, because I did not do. I mean, I'm drawing this, but you know, this is based on some of the official artwork of Pokemon. But copying pictures is a great way to learn how to draw, you know, because in copying a picture, you start to absorb what the artist needed to do, you know, in the exact same way as when you're, if you're learning guitar, you know, you don't dive straight into writing your own songs. You'll learn other people's songs. And you'll sing them, and by learning them and singing them, you'll start to see the way that they wrote the song, or different chord progressions that they use, or whatever. And then when you go to actually write your own song, you'll work with what you know, and you'll be like, oh, well, that's how they do it. And so, you know, that's how any artist really. You know, they have their inspirations, you know, and they know what they like, and then, you know, they'll emulate that. Emulate is kind of like simulate, but you're like trying to do the exact same thing, except eventually you start doing your own thing, because art is about expressing yourself. It's also about having fun, and sometimes drawing something like this for fun is fun, funnily enough. And like what I'm doing here, this is how a lot of illustrations are done, particularly in comic books, where you'll have one person whose job it is to do the line drawing, but then you'll have someone entirely different who does the pencil drawing first, but then you'll have someone else whose entirely different job it is to do the lines, and they're called the inker, and they have some of the best inkers in the world are like just really really talented. I'm not a great inker. Like, I'm good at tracing, but good inking is so much more than tracing. Yeah, so here you can see the little wrinkles along his legs. Did you pick Bulbasaur as your starter Pokemon? I was always a Charmander guy. I always loved the fire ones. I mean, I'm ginger, I'm hot tempered. I was always allured by the flame. Although my favorite one was Typhlosion. I had a Typhlosion called Mickey, and he was on this cartridge. But sadly, as some of you may know, so the original Game Boy did not have a built-in clock, but Pokemon Gold and Silver had a night and day mode, which was new at that point, and it was all really cool and exciting. But in order to do that, they actually had a built-in clock inside the cartridge, and so the problem with that so it meant that was running day in day out, in order to keep track of what time it was, and sadly that clock ran out. The battery ran out, and when the battery ran out, it didn't just stop remembering what time it was, it stopped remembering the save file. And so the save file, now, I mean, you can get them replaced and whatnot, but any save file that was there is now gone. And yeah, no, so I think the save file had like kind of about a 12-year-ish, I suppose, depending on how much you used it and stuff, but it had about 12 years, and then it started, people started reporting my what's the word? Save file has deleted itself, and yeah, and sadly, that is the case with this. When you open it up, it's just like, oh, would you like to start a new game? It's like, no, I'd like to continue my old game, please. As opposed to, in like the original, this is my original Pokemon Blue, it still works, the save file, although it'll probably eventually forget who it is as well. Anyway, let's add some color. Okay, very nice. And finally, well, not finally actually, because we still have the ears and the toesies to do. That's okay, I guess I call them toesies. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Yeah, so even though now this is like definitely a blue, but because it's going on that layer of green, like that green helps. That green is they mix together, you know, and they become this gorgeous new color. Not new as in like it's never been seen before, but new as in we don't have a marker that color, and yet here we are using that color because we're so clever, so we are. Do you like my accent, by the way? There's a wonderful Donegal accent. Donegal, northwest of Ireland, represent. And the big underbelly. Indeed, so I got Bulbasaur, who, you know, name comes from, you know, he's like a little dinosaur, and he has a bulb on his back. And then Ivysaur, same again, except it's Ivy, and then Venusaur, named after the Venus flytrap, I would imagine. Which is slightly silly given that its design is not really based on the Venus flytrap. There's other, like, Bellsprout would be more like a Venus flytrap, although even at that, that's more based on, like, all of those, Victory Bell, Weeping Bell, they're all based on another type of predatory plant that literally has a bell. Doesn't have a bell, but its flower is kind of like in the shape of a bell, and little flies fly in, and then they get stuck in the bottom because it's full of water, and they can't get back out, and the plant slowly but surely digests them. Whereas a Venus flytrap, it has a little reflex on it that just closes up if it senses a little fly or anything crawling along. Pretty cool. I used to have a Venus flytrap. Okay, and there we have it. Venusaur. So let's have a look at them together. So we got Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, and Venusaur. They all look pretty good together. Let's see. So, what we can do is Bulbasaur, Ivysaur. Oh, there we go. Venusaur. Done. And only 1,018 to go. So, our journey begins. Now, what we're also going to do here now, so this is where we get our folder. This is where we get our folder, and we put it in, and now you can use just a hole puncher if you want, or I'm actually going to put this in at the start just so we can keep track of those. The beginning of our journey. And now we can take our Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur and start putting them in. And over time, we will have collected and created the entire Pokemon collection. Yeah, you can see them through the back. Class. And we'll probably need more than one binder by the end of this journey, but we'll just stick to one for now. Okay. Let's get them in here. Woohoo! So, and there we have it, folks. The journey has begun to draw them all. And thanks for watching, folks. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be informed whenever a new video is up. I aim to hopefully have these up once a week, and so we can go from there. Next week will be Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard. Charizard is like one of my favourite Pokemon, and was indeed my starter Pokemon. Charmander was. So we have that to look forward to. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok and the likes at John D. Ruddy, where I will be posting up updates. Also, I'd love to see your pictures. If you draw pictures based from this video, please, you know, send them on to me, you know, tag me in them or whatever. I'd love to see your illustrations. Also on my channel you'll get daily history videos letting you know what happened on this date, whatever many years ago. And indeed you can check out Manny Man Does History on my other YouTube channel, John D. Ruddy. So yeah, see you next week.